it's Ash from Super Videos back for another video for Season 8 of The Walking Dead. In this video, I'm going to be doing the review for Season 8, Episode 4, and also the promo breakdown for the next episode, Episode 5. So if you're new here, this is basically the new way I'm doing things. So I'm going to be doing a quick review for the episode that just aired, and then after that, jumping into the promo of the next episode and breaking it down. So first off, we have episode 4, which was called Some Guy, and this is going to be the review of that episode. It's going to be a quick review, but I'm just going to give my thoughts on the episode. So overall, I wasn't really feeling this episode. It had some great moments. It had some pretty interesting scenes here and there, but overall, I thought that you could kind of look at it as a bottle episode, even though it was action-packed, and that's definitely not what a bottle episode means. A bottle episode can be action-packed as well, just like this one. But in my opinion, it's still a little bit of a bottle episode because it doesn't do enough to move the story forward. And it feels like it's dragged a little bit. And this definitely felt like that. But I'm just gonna give my thoughts on a few scenes here and there. So at the beginning, we have the speech with King Ezekiel and everything, and we have the soldiers saying their goodbye. This is right before they actually start the war, so this is before they attack the sanctuary even. But, you know, I thought this speech was pretty cool. I loved this speech. I thought that, you know, it kind of showed us how much of a leader King Ezekiel really is. And I really thought that parallel at the beginning and at the end was pretty cool because in both, we had King Ezekiel in front of his people. But, you know, two entirely different sides of King Ezekiel. But going back to the first scene, I really liked that. The speech was pretty cool. And in my opinion, I like it more that they did it like that, showing them saying their goodbyes and then showing all of the soldiers are dead, than doing it the other way around. I felt like it had more of an emotional impact this way, showing the soldiers saying their goodbye, most of whom are most likely going to die, and then seeing all of those soldiers actually dead. So I definitely thought that the way they did it was pretty cool, and, you know, it enhanced the impact that that scene had. But you know, that was a pretty cool speech by King Ezekiel, and it basically ends with everyone putting their arms on King Ezekiel's shoulder. It pans up, and we see a pile, and the image basically transforms into the pile of soldiers that are dead on top of King Ezekiel. I thought that imagery was amazing. I really liked that imagery there. I thought it was pretty cool. And, you know, it definitely made it better artistically. Then, going from there, we have, you know, the scenes with King Ezekiel running away from all of the walkers who were at some point kingdom members. So that was pretty cool. But we see badass Carol return. She kills a bunch of saviors, which is pretty epic. And then there's this one scene with her. She's basically hiding behind the truck. All of the saviors are shooting at her, and she puts on a show again, which is pretty cool. Now, one negative I had about that scene is, why are the saviors wasting that much bullets? Just like the survivors, the saviors are wasting bullets as well. You know, there's just one person there. It's just Carol. They could have systematically came forward and just killed her if they wanted to. So that made it a bit unrealistic. But I really like to see that side of Carol back again and seeing badass Carol. But then going from there, we have King Ezekiel being captured by that one savior. That one savior was definitely pissing me off. He was annoying, and, you know, I wanted him dead. But it never crossed my mind that that was the way he was going to go. It was gruesome, but I'll get to that. So I really like that whole, you know, scene between the savior and King Ezekiel, because it actually shows King Ezekiel being put under pressure, and we saw another side of King Ezekiel, and I thought that was pretty cool. But when it seems like that savior is going to kill King Ezekiel, you know, Jerry comes in and saves the day. Now, before I get into that whole gruesome scene, I want to talk about what the Savior said. Because the Savior said that Negan wants to put your head on the spike in front of the sanctuary. And I thought that was a pretty interesting reference for comic readers. For TV show only fans, you don't need to worry about it. But for comic readers, that was definitely an Easter egg for the comics. But, you know, I might even do a separate video on that. But I thought that was very interesting. But we have Jerry cutting the savior, in half with the axe. That was gruesome. That was pretty disgusting. And, you know, I knew there was a lot of talks recently about them censoring some scenes and stuff this was definitely not censored. You could see everything. So pretty gruesome, but it had a great impact because it shocked the audience, and that's what it's all about. Then going from there, we have Carol saving Jerry and King Ezekiel when they're surrounded by the walkers. And obviously when she does that, she lets the other saviors go with the weapons. So she kind of made a hard decision at that point, I would say. And she chose to save King Ezekiel and Jerry instead of getting the weapons. Now obviously it didn't come back to hurt them because Rick and Daryl basically chased the guy and got the weapons. Now, a little unrealistic that Daryl and Rick would just be there. I know they were on their way there, but it seems like it was a little too convenient for them to be there at that time. But I like the way that turned out and that whole scene. It was pretty cool. That action sequence with them chasing the car was pretty amazing. I really enjoyed that one. Then we have the ending, which is the part that I'm pretty sure everyone's going to be talking about. Shiva coming and saving King Ezekiel, Jerry, and Carol. But through it all, she ends up getting killed. Pretty emotional death for King Ezekiel, I would say. For us fans, we wanted Shiva to stay longer as well, but I kind of understand why they did it, because obviously CGI costs and stuff like that. But a little unrealistic, I gotta say though, because it seems like it happened too quick. The walkers got the upper hand on Shiva pretty quickly, and it seemed a little unrealistic, to be honest. But obviously this is going to impact King Ezekiel. It's going to be interesting to see how, but it definitely does impact him in the long run. But then we have the ending scene, which I kind of talked about with the imagery, because the start, we had the scene with King Ezekiel in front of his people, and then at the end we had the same scene, but two entirely different sides of King Ezekiel. But overall, I would say I didn't enjoy this episode as much as I should have. Mostly because there was a lot of kind of flashback scenes that they didn't need to have. They could have had a few of them, but I feel like it was just filled with those, and it was there just to fill the time. And I feel like this episode was dragged a little bit more than it needed to be. But overall, I wouldn't say it was a bad episode. I wouldn't say it was great. I wouldn't say it was bad. I would just say it was an okay episode. But I had more expectations. Let's just say that. That's basically it for my review of this episode. Now I'm going to be jumping into the promo breakdown for the next episode, which is going to be called The Big Scary You. So unlike the last episode, which was Kingdom-centric, this episode seems to be pretty much Sanctuary-centric, because we finally get to touch base with Negan and the Saviors back at the Sanctuary and see what they're up to. And basically find out what happens to Father Gabriel. But without further ado, let's get right into this promo, and I'm going to be breaking it down for you guys.
On the next episode of AMC's The Walking Dead.
So, right off the bat, it seems like they're going to pick up exactly from where we left off with Negan and Father Gabriel. And, in this scene, they're still in that same trailer that they were at the last time we saw them. So they're basically surrounded by all the walkers. We can even see some hands in the background. Obviously, those are walkers. So we know this is in the same location. And we have this scene with Negan attacking Father Gabriel. So obviously, Negan is not going to do anything to him. One, because he will definitely want to keep him as leverage. And the other is that if he kills him, that reduces his chances of surviving, because he doesn't know what's going on outside. Father Gabriel, whatever team he's on, he might be able to help him later when they're trying to escape. It might be to both of their advantage for them to help each other. So I definitely think that Negan is doing this, attacking Father Gabriel, as a way to intimidate him.
In here, made everything out there happen.
Then we have this pretty interesting dialogue between all of the saviors. We have Gavin saying, some of us here made everything out there happen. Maybe he's blaming people. Maybe he is blaming Negan. Obviously, Negan is not with them right now. So maybe he is not reluctant to speak out. So maybe he is saying things against Negan. Maybe he is talking about Dwight even. I don't know. But it seems the way he is talking that he's talking about Negan. We have Simon giving a pretty interesting and angry look at Dwight. So maybe Simon finds out that Dwight had something to do with it, and maybe that's what led to him looking at Dwight like that, but it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out because obviously with Negan not being there, Simon is the leader or the main guy that they have to listen to. He's the one that calls the shots. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there and the dialogue that they're going to have with all of the major saviors being there, all the lieutenants, and Simon, who's at that point, I would say the leader of the saviors when Negan is not there. But it's going to be interesting to see whether they found out that Dwight had something to do with this and that he was the double agent, or maybe it's something entirely different. But it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. We have that cool scene with Negan, and he's basically saying, be quiet to Father Gabriel, it seems like. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens between those two, because obviously there's been a lot of teasers regarding Negan's backstory being played out a little bit with Father Gabriel and Negan being there. So it's going to be interesting to see whether that happens and whether it happens in this episode and how it goes.
You gotta see it through.
We have Rick saying there's a plan, we gotta see it through, and they're basically getting all of the weapons from that vehicle. Obviously, if you remember in the last episode, they were able to get a hold of all of those weapons. So it seems like they're gonna use those weapons and they have some sort of plan.
We gotta win.
We have Daryl saying we gotta win. Maybe that has something to do with that tension that's building up between Rick and Daryl. Daryl is all about winning, is all about killing all of them. Rick is all about the plan. So it seems like we have a little bit of tension building between them. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
You can't leave the saviors out of here, I will.
We have Dwight saying you can't lead the saviors out of here, I will. So it's going to be interesting to see who he's talking to. Most likely that's Simon. So Dwight is basically talking to Simon and saying if you can't lead, I will. So interesting to see how that plays out. That might have something to do with the last scene that I just discussed with Simon giving that stare to Dwight. We have this savior and Daryl is basically going to shoot him in the head. This is the same exact savior from the last episode that was basically getting away with the weapons.
Because I'm not there to stop it.
We have Negan saying my folks are going to die in there because I'm not there to stop it. So interesting that we have Negan actually being a little emotional and saying that I'm not there to save my people. We haven't seen that a lot from Negan, not at all, I would say. So it's interesting to see that he actually cares about his people. But overall, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Negan and Father Gabriel, the conversation between them, and whether they're going to get out of there and how they're going to get out of there. What's going to happen with the lieutenants or the saviors that are inside the sanctuary? How are they going to get out? What's going to happen between Simon and Dwight, because there seems to be tension between them? What's going to happen with Rick and Daryl? What's their plan? And how are they going to get back at the saviors now? That I would say most of the outposts are dealt with. But that's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.